Hey, what's up, Hacksplainers? I've just passed the Offensive Security Web Expert certification, and after I posted this on Twitter, I got a hell lot of questions about the course, the exam, what you learn. Got a ton of questions, and in this episode, I'm going to answer all of them. So make sure to check this out. Alright, so people asking all the time, what is the OSWE about? And what is the AWAE? First of all, the AWAE is just the course and the material you get for the OSWE, and the OSWE is the certification. So in the end, you're getting OSWE certified. But what are you getting taught then in the AWAE course? And it's pretty easy to answer that. So if you want to get a full list of what you're going to learn, just go to the Offensive Security Web Expert page that I'm going to link down in the description. And there is the syllabus section. Just check it out. It literally lists everything you're going to learn. But I want to quickly point out the most interesting things to me. So it started with getting used to a couple of tools. So you get another introduction to Burp Suite. You get an introduction to decompilers such as JD GUI for Java, or for DNSpy, which allows you to decompile .NET applications. So that is pretty cool. On top of that, you are getting taught how to debug all those applications. So you have different programming languages that you're dealing with. You're covering Java, you have .NET, you have Node.js, and you have PHP. So those are the four main programming languages in the OSWE, and you get to know how to debug code in those languages. What else? There is a ton of different things. So you get a little bit of the classic web app security vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting, like SQL injection, but then on those, you get a lot of details. For example, for the SQL injection part, you get info on how to exploit blind SQLi vulnerabilities. And that's a tough one if you haven't done that without a tool like SQL Map. What else? You get to know language agnostic vulnerabilities. For example, PHP has or is known for its type juggling vulnerabilities and also for its magic hashes. So you get taught a lot about that stuff. What else? You have, in many cases, that there is a token or something that is generated in a weak way. And you get to know how to exploit stuff like that. Many other times you have regex or restrictions that are in place that keep you from, I don't know, like executing any sort of specific file with a file ending XYZ. You get to know how to circumvent and bypass that. What else? There is a big focus on remote code execution. So many times you find a vulnerability, but you don't know how to chain multiple vulnerabilities together to actually get RCE in the end. So that is a major focus of the course. And yeah, for the rest, just check out the syllabus. All right. So next up, people were wondering, what is the price of the certification and what are you getting for it? So the price is different depending on how much lab time you acquire. So you can either get 60 days of lab access or you can buy 90 days of lab access. So that's 2 to 3 months. And 2 months come up to $1,299 and 3 months is $1,499. And that includes the lab access for that entire time and the first certification exam attempt. If you happen to fail and you need another attempt, you can get a retake. And a retake is costing you $200. There is also the possibility to extend the lab if you need more time, but more on that on the course's webpage linked in the description. And what exactly are you getting for it? So the OSWE actually came with a PDF back in the days of 250 pages. Then they extended it, they came up with version 2.0, and now you have around 410 pages. So you get that, And you also get a ton of video material. So every single machine, every single lab that you are getting walked through in the PDF, you have a video to it. So if you don't know how to hack something out of the PDF, you can always check out the video right next to it and see how the instructor is doing it. So that helps you to actually find a way to exploit the web app. And that's pretty cool. The next question people were asking me all the time is, how does the exam look like? How does it feel like? How is it set up? So it's done like this. First of all, you gotta pick a time slot when your exam is starting. You gotta do that a couple of weeks in advance, and then you start, for example, I don't know, April 1st at 12 in the afternoon. From that moment on, you have 48 hours to complete the technical section of the OSWE certification. And after that, you have another 24 hours to write a report. And the report is mandatory. So you gotta put down all your findings in a report in the end and hand that in to offensive security. So what happens when the exam starts? So you gotta be there 50 minutes early, and it's really, really well done. So you have a proctor, you log into the software, it's a proctor exam software, you show them your passport or your ID, you show them your rooms, you move around the camera, they ask you to remove, for example, your mobile phone or a couple of other things, and then the exam starts. And you gotta share your screen. If you use multiple screens, you gotta share all of them. And you have, throughout the first 48 hours, always a proctor that monitors what you're doing. So they're seeing your screens and they're seeing your face at all time. What you can do is you can obviously take toilet breaks, you can go outside, get some fresh air, or I don't know, you can even sleep if you want to do that. But every time you do that, you gotta let the proctor know, you gotta put down a little sentence saying, yo, what's up? I'm taking a break. I'll be back shortly. And they're like, okay, cool. Do that. Just let us know when you're back and you can continue your exam. So that is the first 48 hours, and that actually worked out pretty smoothly. That was well done. And then when the first 48 hours are over, you're having another 24 hours to write the report. And that is not proctored anymore. So during that report writing phase, you're just sitting down in peace. Nobody's watching you anymore, and you write the report and you hand it in. Just be careful. Handing in the report has a lot of rules, so be sure to read the exam guide pretty carefully. I'm going to link that down in the description as well, because it gotta have a specific file name, a specific format, you gotta structure it in the right way, and all that. Once you have done that, you hand it in, you click on OK, and you only have one single try to send your report to offensive security. And you wait, and a couple of days later, you're getting an email letting you know if you've passed the exam or not. But hopefully you do, and I know that you will do that. Next up, I want to tell you a couple of things that I struggled with during the exam, how the exam looks like, and basically my key learnings after I finished the exam. So the exam is structured in a way that you're getting two machines and you have to pass two different tasks on both those machines. The first is, and that is always similar to the PDF, the first is to get admin access, and the second one is to get remote code execution of the machine. So that is pretty similar to the PDFs. And in general, the exam is similar to the PDF. So make sure that you have done all the tasks out of the lab machines, and there's always some extra miles which are not described in the PDF. So make sure to do those. Take your time. It actually takes a lot of time to walk through the entire material, and really do those extra miles and repeat them if you are not too familiar with what you've done. Repeat them over and over and over again. There's also a forum that helps you with the lab, so use that, and then you will be, generally speaking, ready for the exam. But then still, coming back to the exam, there is a lot of things that I had to learn throughout the exam. And the first thing to me was stick to the basics. So malicious input is usually coming in via a parameter. So make sure to check out the mapping of the website, check out all the post parameters that can come in, check out all the get parameters that can come in. This is where an attacker can start attacking the web app. and then use that as your starting point and walk down the code flow. But start there, get down to the basics. Another thing you can do is search for terms like query. If you're targeting a SQL injection vulnerability and you want to search for them, search for query, look how the web app is sending those SQL queries to the server, and use the regex functionality or even just the regular search functionality in VS Code to search for that. And VS Code has a nice feature where you can use your search and print that into a page, and then you have all those results listed nicely. And you can click on them and it takes you back to the file. That is pretty cool. What else? Learn how to debug in all sorts of environments. The applications, the web apps, the machines during the exam are not set up ready for debugging. So you gotta do that by yourself. And sometimes that even means you gotta decompile your application first, then set it up for debugging, either being it remote debugging or local debugging. But as you're not allowed to pull down the code onto your Kali VM, you have to get used to remote debugging. What else? Make sure to write or be capable of writing little helper tools in different programming languages. So the whole course teaches you to use Python to write your POC, your POC. And the POC is also the one source of truth that you exploited the web app that you have to hand in during the report or in the report. But it is also quite vital to be capable of writing little tiny helper classes in, let's say, Java or PHP that your Python POC uses. And why is that important? There is a couple of times a crypto challenge or something like that in place that you have to solve, that you have to find a vulnerability in, and you don't really want to search for all the Python equivalent libraries during the exam, so it's a little easier to use the existing code that you see in, for example, Java, and then just use that in your Python POC. What else? Immediately document your findings as soon as you've found something. The vulnerabilities are set up in a way that it's a lot of tiny little vulnerabilities chained together, and they all have their tiny little mistakes in different classes within the code. So what I was doing was, whenever I saw a little pointer, I immediately took a screenshot, put it down in my little documentation next to me, put down a little tiny sentence what this was about, and kept doing that throughout the entire exploit chaining. So do that immediately, because afterwards, once you've worked your way through, you might have already forgotten how you got to the first point in the beginning. So do that. What else? Get used to different tools that are allowed to be used. For example, Burp Suite Professional is not allowed to be used, but there is tiny little helper tools, for example, YSO Serial, that are allowed to be used. So make sure to know how to use tools like those and use them before the exam. Make sure to check out, for example, Portswigger's web app Academy, where you can also play around with those tools and make sure to know how to use them. What else? Have templates prepared for a couple of things. If you, enumerate a couple of letters or whatsoever in your POC and you need to do that, you can set up templates for your Python POC beforehand. And all that is actually done throughout the PDF. So go over the PDF prior to the exam and print out all those scripts that you were using in the PDF and put them somewhere nicely where you can use them and have them ready during the exam. That is a pretty good tip. What else? Read a lot of code. I mean, that seems to be pretty obvious, right? You're getting to read a ton of code throughout the exam. I'll link you a nice little page in the description that I've been using where I set up my own little lab. It was just setting up different applications that you can find, for example, on GitHub. And I just read how people structure and write the code. That is helpful. You got to get used to that. Then what else? Implement debug code. Although you can debug your code, it's sometimes still helpful to print like an echo somewhere, or to, I don't know, just make a print line in your POC and see what it spills out. I had a pretty dumb mistake where I had a non-printable character that screwed up my POC entirely, and I used like 2 hours to find it. That was stupid. What else? A couple of those applications do send emails, and you kind of want to know what that email looks like. So you can use a Python SMTP debugger to have a look how that email looks like, how it is sent to the actual user or victim of the application. How that is done inside the PDF, inside the course material. Just make sure to use it. What else? If you're setting up if you get to have a look at the lab machine during the exam, make sure to turn on all the things that help you. Turn on database logging. There will be a ton of requests being sent to the database. Turn it on, monitor the log output, and make sure to use the knowledge that you have in there to help you out exploiting, for example, a SQLi vulnerability. Also, get onto the database. So you always have a target machine where you don't have much access to, and you always have a debug machine where you can log into the database as an administrator, and you can structure all the different tables and get used to it and see if there is any juicy or important data that is being stored in the database. Do that, and also make sure to put down your exploit, SQL code whatsoever in the database first and play around with it. It's easier if you're directly typing it in MySQL or, for example, in PostgreSQL, rather than doing it via the vulnerability in the web app. Make sure to do that. Another thing that I've learned was don't worry too much about all that is written down in the exam overview. So once you're logging in, you're getting bombarded with information that you have to do. There's like the tasks that you have to fulfill. There is information about the flags that you have to find and all that. Read it once, but start working on the machines. And don't worry too much about the flags. They will eventually pop up. If you log in as an admin, the flag is going to be there. If you are going to get RCE, just search for the flag on the server. It will be easy, trust me. So let's summarize how the exam went for me. I started the day, or the Sunday actually, before Christmas in 2020 at 12 in the afternoon. And I said to myself, I'm going to focus on the first machine and I'm not going to touch the second machine until I finish the first, which is what I was doing. And I struggled in the first couple of hours. It took me 4, 5, 6 hours to actually get into Git flow. But then things suddenly started to make sense and I got my first pointers that led me to getting admin access. And then it roughly took until the next day. So I took almost the entire first 24 hours to finish the first machine. And then I started with the second. In the first night, I must have slept around 4 hours and I kept hacking. I think I was awake until 2 a.m. Woke up again at 6 a.m., started hacking again, and did another full day of hacking until midnight. And then I slept for roughly 6 hours and hacked for another 6 hours on the second day. So that sums up to roughly 10 hours of sleep and 38 hours of hacking. Of course, those 38 hours were not just me sitting in front of the computer. I was taking a couple of breaks. I got some fresh air, and also make sure to really lose your thoughts a little bit and think about something different. every now and then because you're getting crazy by looking at code for 38 hours straight. All right. So before I finish up this video, I want to get into a couple of questions that I got on Twitter by you out there, and I hope that those questions also help all the other viewers. Of course, beforehand I want to say, if you have additional questions that I haven't been answering in this video, just put them down in a comment and I will definitely get back to you with an answer. All right, so let's have a look at the first one. First question is, I'd be interested in your general thoughts. Primarily, was it worth it for you? What did you learn? And how is it compared to the OSCP? It was totally worth it for me. There were so many things that I haven't been playing around with, either be it because I didn't really have the time to look into it, and it kind of forced me to look at a lot of new vulnerabilities. An example is deserialization vulnerabilities. I was actually always kind of scared to deal with them, but they're not too bad once you start actually looking into them. So that was something really nice. How is it compared to the OSCP? I personally haven't done the OSCP, so I cannot tell too much about it. But from what I know and what people have told me, it is more infrastructure hacking based, and the OSWE is really only source code review based, web app hacking based. So those are the two different, or that is, I guess, the biggest differentiator between those two. My general thoughts, maybe to conclude the question, it is really good for how little you pay. The course is excellent. Sometimes it could be a little better. The support you get from a team is not the best, but they always tell you to try harder anyway, and it kind of makes sense. You really have to take your time, sit down, Google a lot, use Stack Overflow, whatever you need to get through those vulnerabilities, and just get the knowledge by yourself. All right, next question. What was your approach when it comes to analyze large code bases in an efficient manner? I think I've touched that before in the video. I used the search functionality of VS Code a lot. I was searching for post, get, put parameters. I was searching for SQL queries, and from there I went on to search for vulnerability. And what I also did was I focused on the vulnerabilities that are getting taught in the course. You won't find anything else. So if it hasn't been brought to you in the PDF, it won't come in the exam, and you don't have to search for it. So only search for that was taught in the PDF. All right, what else? How many web apps during the exam? 2. What else? How many files, source code lines per web app? A guy said 30 files with 400 lines. Don't really remember too well. It was definitely more than 30 files, but it's doable. It's definitely doable in 48 hours. And like I said before, stick to the basics. Make sure to have a structured way to search for the vulnerabilities, and you'll be fine. Okay, next question. How hard is it for someone who has software engineering experience? I guess it's easier if you have that. I'm personally not a software engineer, so I struggled with understanding the different concepts of programming in all those different languages. But I guess if you're a software engineer, you will have an easier time anyway to understand the code base, and then you're having an easier time searching and finding the vulnerabilities. All right, next questions. Are debuggers such as Xdebug already installed and configured? No. You're getting a lot of advice in the PDF how to use debugging in all those different languages, and even I think during the exam there are little pointers, but you have to set it up by yourself, and you are supposed to know how that works. Next question. Have you used any other tools other than the ones they mention in the course? Not too much actually. They cover all the tools you need, but obviously if, for example, you prefer reading code in a different IDE other than VS Code, or write your POCs in a different language other than Python, stick to the tools and the programming language you're used to. You don't have to follow everything that is brought to you in the PDF. They even tell you in the exam that you can write your POC in Haskell if you want. It doesn't matter. But there is not really anything else that you need other than that, what you get taught in the PDF and in the videos. All right. Those were all the questions that I got. I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Please make sure to leave comments if you have additional questions. I'll try to answer all of them, but please give me a little bit of time. Apart from that, please also check out my Patreon. Maybe you want to support all my videos a little bit in the future because those take a little bit of work. And yeah, that was it. I'm super happy once again that I've passed the OSWE. I am sure that you will pass it as well if you put a little bit of time into it. I'm not going to say that it is an easy certification, but if you take your time, you will definitely learn a lot. You will pass the exam, and it will help you along the way to become a master's hacker. All right, with that, I'm concluding my review of the OSWE. I hope you liked it. Leave a like, leave a subscription, and I'll see you again soon.